Go ahead.
Any question?
Yeah, so like how they're using, it's about the First Amendment and how you're using it, keeping it alive, or who are you, where are you from, how are you using your rights, do you feel you stand, whatever it is.
Well, first of all, we gotta ask a specific name and spelling, so what would your name? I don't have anything written down.
It's all being recorded, so we'll just,
Oh,
that's
okay.
being taken care of that.
Well, okay, so First Amendment, well, our school.
You're asking him.
Wait, okay. Okay, so, yes, what is your name?
Andrew Kelly.
Andrew Kelly. So,
Yes.
okay, so First Amendment, does your school have prior review, like with the publication?
No, and that's an interesting subject because as I was walking around this conference today, there was this newspaper and they informed me that their principal actually controls the publication and censors it. And I thought an interesting thing at our school is we don't get censored really unless we publish something that's like libelous or slander. So that's one way we use our First Amendment rights is to obviously not get censored.
What area, how do you think schools should be controlling a newspaper if the newspaper itself is, let's say, part of a journalism class, as it was in the Hazelwood case? I mean, what are some topics that a principal or someone should be able to censor that could be controversial or get the school in trouble?
I think that in the case of like libelous things or slanderous things, obviously that too. But another thing I think that should be controlled is if you're putting stories out there to try to like promote rebellion against the school or causing like disruption, taking away from the education and trying to, I don't know, it's kind of like an overthrow or just spreading some bad things about the school. And I think that could be censored if it's wrong too. But if it's something that like the school is doing that is really bad and should be talked about, I think then that's okay.
In your school, are there any sort of rules or regulations that you find are just very different from other schools and aren't fair to you or your peers?
In terms of like our newspaper or just in general? In general? Nothing really different from other schools. No, but it's not really different from other schools with the dress code, but I think that's like a separate discussion completely from that. But that does kind of make me mad, the dress code.
All right. What about the dress code makes you mad?
Our school says we can't wear certain things because they're distracting to education, which I think is completely ridiculous because if somebody is wearing a shirt that has like a beer bottle on it, how is that distracting somebody else from learning? I just don't see how, if I'm wearing a shirt that has, I don't know, like a beer bottle on it, how is that taking away from your learning of the subject?
Speaking of prior review, has your school never had prior review or has it been eradicated?
With our journalism class, our advisor's pretty good about that. If we're doing something controversial, we will talk with like the superintendent or the principal to make sure that we're doing everything okay and that we're doing everything we should be able to.
So you don't need to be censored in order to be ethical?
Yes.
What is the name of your school?
Superior Senior High School in Superior, Wisconsin.
I have a question for the audience here. How many of your papers are actually prior reviewed? When I talk about prior, you guys know what that means? I mean, it goes to the principal or some other school official before it goes to the printer. So show of hands, how many school papers here or school media are prior reviewed? So not very many. So
How many are not?
How many? Yeah.
How many are
The
not?
rest of you actually go. Okay.
All right.
So how many of you all have had in the last year have had any sort of significant censorship problem? One, okay. Anybody else? Any other hands back there?
Right here.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, why don't we switch?
Yeah,
You
let's
mind
do
doing
it.
the interview here and asking them about their censorship is?
Yeah, sure.
Get their spelling on their names and all that good stuff.
No, but yeah, what high school are you from?
Appleton North High School.
Okay, and then what was the incident with the censorship?
It's not so much major cases as it is kind of grading, like every day. Say we're on deadline and the principal has gone home or he's not available. How are we going to get something out if it hasn't been reviewed? Because that's a major liability against us. We were on deadline recently, and over one single area, one single paragraph, we had to deliberate for about 15 minutes over whether it would be safe to put that out because we were on deadline, but the principal wasn't there.
What was that paragraph about?
It was about homecoming. It was a comment on it. It was debated whether it was risque or not. It got published and it's missing me, so.
Okay, you can't be any more specific than that, like what, like what?
This is getting
Okay, so it was rumored that our school had a no 90-degree rule at homecoming. I won't elaborate further on that part. We do a section cheers and jeers, things that are good, things that are bad. For a cheer, I put homecoming, let's try to keep it to 89 degrees of fun. So we had a lot of tension. It was like last minute. Deadline had to be out like in a few minutes, and it was like, would the principal be okay with this? He's not quite here. This could be really bad for us.
With that 89 degrees of fun, that's what you guys were deliberating about?
Yeah, that single.
Okay. And I don't know what you guys think. I just personally believe that you should be able to say that without having a principal to, because if he says, no, you can't do that, like, why? What did you think? Like, were you guys really deliberating for 15 minutes about that?
Yes, there was indecision on all of our parts. It set us on edge. It set our advisor on edge, our chief editor on edge, me on edge because, I mean, I had to have this content ready in a few minutes.
Why did it set you on edge? Were there any examples beforehand that would like indicate that something might happen?
That's the thing. I don't think so because everything had been so meticulously reviewed that if there was anything out of line, it would have come as a major shock.
Do you think that school editors are chosen because they have opinions and positions that are favorable typically to the school administration or to the principal?
In my case anyway, the principal or the administration had nothing to do with me being editor-in-chief of my newspaper. It was the advisor because he thought I could get things done well and I had good ethics and decision-making skills. It had nothing to do with my personal views. I don't know what you guys.
Thankfully, I agree with that. We are chosen on our dedication to the paper, our writing capabilities. However, what we write still has to fall within the lines.
I actually go to the same school as Sam over there. I'm Abby, kind of skip that part. But with our school, each editor is chosen to specifically take care of an individual section, and that section is under the rule of that person, but also like an overall editor to oversee all the groups. With our case of homecoming, it was a joke that the principal was going to walk around then after 89 degrees of fun, and if you were over 90 degrees, he would send you out, he'd have his little protractor and he'd go around. But also another case is I personally wrote an article on Banned Books Week because it was current. Unfortunately, our newspaper at Appleton North, we only get to do it once a month since we are still not online yet. We're working on that. But since everything has to be current, it's kind of hard to write different things. And then, like Sam was saying, our principal has to approve every little part, even comic strips. They have to be appropriate within school guidelines. And even one of our other amendment rights is freedom of the press, and yet our school is telling us what we can and cannot publish. So that's my thing.
So it's kind of hard to teach kids about ethics when we are not allowed to test ethics, and when something that we do is denied because we are not allowed to do it rather than it's just not good journalism. So I think a lot of kids at our school get confused about that.
I'm happy to say we haven't really had an incident with being censored before at our school. I was not on the staff at the time this was published, but we have a group at our school called Pledge Makers, and they pledge to not drink or do drugs their whole high school career. And we had some of them anonymously in our story talking about how they did do drugs or they did do alcohol, and that was not censored by our principal or our staff.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for the one prior review. Has your principal asked you not to print anything?
It's not exactly saying, hey, you shouldn't really print this. It's more like, I believe it's two-way. We can kind of get a feel over what he would like, dislike, but again, it comes down to you cannot print this, you can print this, rephrase it. I think there are a few things where it's like grudgingly accepted. It's pretty much either it can be in there or it cannot.
Also going to the same school, I feel like when you hand in your article to the principal and he looks at it, it's like passing your article to your grandma. And she's going to sit there and she's going to read your article and she's going to tell you her opinion on that specific article that you wrote with your opinion. And then it's, if your grandma likes it, then it goes. If your grandma doesn't like it, well, too bad. You're going to have one less article for your once a month newspaper.
My principal is a great guy. I know, well, it's just that if the principal does review it under the current rules, he can be held liable. So that's kind of the problem with prior review, because if they do not review it, they cannot be held liable. But if they do, then they are setting themselves in harm's way. So he's a great guy, but with this review, it seems to be protecting the school and the administration.
Mike, you're a lawyer, though. If this principal is, by the way, I'm Steve Brown, I work for public radio here in Wisconsin. If a principal is unavailable, he's out of town, he's at dinner, he's asleep or she's asleep, and something is still printed in the school newspaper and it has the imprimatur of the school, it's an official publication of the school, isn't the principal and the school board, I used to be on a school board, still going to be liable for what goes into that paper that an editor and a board, a student board of editors decide?
You know, there's a bit of conflicting case law on it, but one of the few cases that is actually addressed that issue of whether or not schools should be held responsible or liable when they're not involved in the editorial process. This actually took place out in my neck of the woods up in Washington State. And the court there said that no, that as long as school officials weren't involved in the editorial process, that the school's deep pockets weren't subject to, a plaintiff in a lawsuit. That's always been the law and very firmly established at the college level. It really hasn't been tested much at the high school level, other than this one Washington case, just because one of the things that a lot of folks don't know about is one of the reasons that school officials often censor student media is they're afraid of liability. They say they're so scared about, the school getting sued. When the reality is that we regularly do like a Westlaw search looking for cases, and is going back to the very beginning. I mean, since student media has been coming out, there is not one reported case out there where a school district has ever been held liable for something reported in something published in student media.
Wow.
I did a website search and I looked for media, school district liability, athletics, football, all these kind of things. Something like 500 cases came up, and then I did the same thing for looking for student media, yearbooks, newspapers, and only one case came up. It was actually down in Illinois. A case came up, and I said, "Oh crap, our record's been broken." It looks like a school district has been held liable for a case involving media. Well, it turns out I read the facts, and what had happened is there was a commercial photographer who was covering a football game and got ran over by one of the football players, and so he was sued. So it had nothing to do again with the student media. So our record is still absolutely blank. There are no cases out there of school districts being held liable. So so I think we're in pretty good shape here with this flux.
Well, and I just think that shows the responsibility of the student reporters. If we have gone so long without that, why do we need somebody reviewing our paper? Especially when we sit in the class and we go through those ethics lessons, and then our principal reviews the paper that maybe have never even been in an ethics lesson. Like, why is that necessary? We've been fine up to this point. Yeah.
For the two of you that have your principal review your paper, Do you feel that that's limiting your First Amendment rights just because you're having, like she said, you know, it's like having your grandma review your paper, so it's a yes or a no. So if you feel like you're getting limited,
Since it's legal, I can't say that it's against the First Amendment, however, I can say it's an insult to the First Amendment. And as I said before, as far as ethics, I don't know how we are going to know what ethics are if bad journalism is simply censored rather than worked through. These Kempa camps are excellent. I learned about the law regarding prior review here at one of these camps during the summer, and I was shocked. I did not know that was the case, and I doubt, or, well, I should not comment on what my administration thinks, but I think that most of them could use a class.
By the way, I teach school law to teachers who want to become school principals, and you're right. I have found that usually 90% of the teachers who have been in my graduate classes who want to become school principals know absolutely nothing about case law, and I wouldn't expect them to, or the rights of students, or the rights of teachers. So I think you're absolutely right with that statement.
Can I just ask a question? You guys say you're not online yet, is that right? But you're moving online? Okay. How many of you guys in the audience, by show of hands, how many of you all have your papers online now, have an online version? So maybe about half, it looks like. My next question is, how many of you guys, when you finish writing an article, finish putting it on your paper, how many of you tweet out something about the articles, the things that you're publishing? I want you guys to look around. I mean, I'm counting like 6 hands that went up in this audience. I mean, where do you guys get most of your information right now? I mean, do you read the print papers? I mean, do you read the New York Times, the Chicago Trib, or anything like that? I mean, no, that's not what's happening. I mean, you're getting it online. But if you look around in the audience, I mean, you see that you guys aren't even being allowed. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, why aren't you tweeting? I mean, can somebody who didn't raise their hand, why aren't you tweeting out the fact that you put out a newspaper article or putting out some sort of electronic notification? Yes?
Our district blocks Twitter and Facebook and everything like that on our computers, so we have no access.
What district?
District 405 in Rockville.
How many other of your districts block Twitter and that's why you're not doing it? Okay. How many of you, why, do you have any idea why does your district block Twitter and some of these online?
I know that students that are in the lab, which we don't have that many labs, and if we do, the teachers just going on for a certain use, but I'm sure that it'll create a distraction from what the students are supposed to be doing, but I've never really thought.
Are you sure about that? I mean,
That's what I've just assumed. I haven't really.
Do you think it would?
No, for sure.
Can I also say something on that?
Yes, please, yes.
I think if you're in the class and you have work to get done and you go on Twitter, that's your own fault for not getting that work done and getting an F on that. I think that most of you guys are responsible enough to get your work done and not go on Twitter, but when you are done with your work, you should be able to go on Twitter. They shouldn't be blocking the information that you get. That's just my perspective.
Can't you do that from home? Off school property?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
You know,
can.
on your own account and tweet something?
But if you're done with all your work, if you're in a study hall, if you're at lunch, why can't you still go to those things? You can do it at home. I just don't think it should be restricted at school.
Is that violating your First Amendment rights, you think, if it's being blocked?
I don't,
Go ahead, come on.
I don't know what, I mean, I don't know what part it would be violating, but I don't know. I just think I should be able to go on there, and it's blocking some sort of right that I have.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think a good defense for not blocking Twitter and Facebook in school is that in college you don't have any sort of block. And you mean college kids get their work done or they're gonna get their work done. You can sit on Twitter, and I know people who sit on Twitter on their college classes and defend. So I mean, I think that's good defense for high school. Why, if you're education trying to prepare you for college, why are we so much more restricted?
Excellent. This is your platform. This is your opportunity. If you don't think that this ought to happen, I mean, if you guys think that you ought to be able to tweet out the fact that you've just done an article you're proud of, tell us why. I mean, talk to the cameras, let us put this out there. Is it important to you? I mean, do you think you should have this right?
No one's gonna like what I'm gonna have to say, but there is an age, we're all under 18 and we're still in school, and I know that's gonna suck to say that when you're at school, you should really be focused on school, and everyone's gonna be like, well, I wanna go on Twitter, I wanna go on Facebook. I know, I want to go on Twitter and Facebook too, but I have, and all of you can probably agree with me, in your class, there are those kids who do not do anything all the time. They're sitting next to you on Facebook. How annoying would that be if they go, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this funny picture, look at this squirrel. It's just, to me, it's too much of a distraction. And during school, that's school time, and now everyone has smartphones and they can go do that or look at that. But to me, you're under 18 and you're still in school, so that's fine.
Well, while that may be true, I don't think it should be about the common denominator. I think it should be about what we must be capable of doing to fulfill our jobs. In the newspaper, I will be sitting at school and I'll be like, you know what, I saved that on Facebook. You know what, I communicated to this person on Facebook. I don't have any record of this. I can't talk to my contributors. I can't email. I can't forward receive. It does limit me, and therefore my rights and my efficiency as a student to not have access. Wait, Beck?
Okay, so going off of what she said, I completely agree with you. School is for learning, and there are so many, no offense, there's so many uneducated people on social media. We got by all these years without social media in school, so why does Twitter have to be a part of the newspaper?
I don't
I
think,
mean, it's a greater way to get your word out, but it's not necessary.
I don't think why we should be asking ourselves, why don't we have it? I think we should be asking, no, we shouldn't be asking like, yeah, we should be asking ourselves why it was taken away in the first place, why we would have it. I mean, if you're that kid in the class showing, like, sitting on Facebook all day, it's your fault that you're not getting educated. You're not going to graduate high school, and that's your fault. Now, I think most of you guys are mature enough to get your work done. I just think you should be able to.
I just want to throw one quick question into it also. Some think you should be able to do it, some think you should not be able to do it, right? But do you have any say about the policy in your school? And do you think you should have some say? Maybe there would be a debate. Maybe some would think yes, some no. But in the end, is any of this being decided by you? I just like throwing it in.
You could go to a board meeting.
Good, yeah.
In our school, we have, Twitter's not blocked, but Facebook's blocked, and our principal has a Twitter page, and he tweets every day. And so we're all updated about like events at school and stuff. And our teachers, we have this thing called Remind 101 for our like phones, and they text us reminders of like if a test is coming up or if you have a quiz. So our school is like friendly toward that. The only thing they block is Facebook.
What school is that? If you don't mind.
Brookfield Central.
Do you get to tweet too, or is it just the teacher? You can do tweets about the papers or again.
It's not blocked on the Wi-Fi.
Interesting.
Yes.
I think in some ways, like you said, where Facebook is blocked and Twitter is not, that shows at some center kind of a lot of subjectivity on the side of the school board, where I'm fine if you're blocking all of social media or all of YouTube and Hulu and Vimeo and whatever else, but I feel like when you block some sites and not others on reasons either based on ignorance of their capacity or distrust, I really think that shouldn't be approved of and lauded. I think either be consistent all the time or just don't block anything out.
How many of you guys have, on like a computer at home, parental controls? Like one of those setup options that your parents can go on and choose what you see or don't see? No one. So going back to what school consents or not, now I kind of hear what everyone's saying. If you just keep it open to the students and let them choose what they see or what they don't see, well, then that's your choice what you do with your time and your education. But you can set up like history. Like you can go back and look to see what students are doing in their time. If a student starts failing all their classes, well, go ahead, go look at what sites they're on during lab time. Go see, what they're doing, just to try, and then maybe set up personal restrictions to that person. But if you're a student, probably most people in here, you're a good student, you do what you're doing, then it shouldn't be that much of an issue.
So where does cyberbullying come into all this? How's that going to be handled by a school board, school administration? If everyone had access and it wasn't being blocked at school, of course you can do it from home, which a lot of people do anyway.
I don't think it should be a decision on the school board. If you're getting cyberbullied to the extent where you can't take it anymore, delete your account, get off of it.
I don't really see in this circumstance why cyberbullying should be different than normal bullying under school policy. Why should an entire medium be eliminated just because bullying can take place? That's like eliminating school because bullying can take place.
Like the schools have, I think that social media is moving so far fast that the schools can't catch up, and they don't really know how to react to it, so they just kind of block it all out. And so it just every time they sort of figure out what they can do to use it and sort of utilize it in the school environment, it keeps moving. So it's always one step ahead of the school system.
You guys call.
Okay, going off of what he said, my school, SPASH, we actually we have restrictions on our computers. We are given school computers, laptops to take home and use for school uses. And we have social media blocked because of the school bullying, the cyberbullying, because it was being done at school. So, that's just one point of view. We did it just so that, someone can't come back and say, well, I was having this done to me at school. Why didn't somebody do something about it?
Why can't the school deal with it? Why do they have to delete the
Because the school can't, the school won't monitor it. They'll go back through our history.
If you're getting bullied, you should report it and have it taken care of like you would if you were getting bullied in school without technology. You shouldn't just get rid of the site for everybody.
And that's what they did at first, but then it got to the point where it escalated because then people would have other people do it for them.
Well, not to mention, the school already has its own forms of communication that are allowed and that could be used for nefarious acts, so it's like they're eliminating some that are simply more common for students rather than just their own. Things can get through on the school.
If you're expecting any public school, and I've been a school principal, if you're expecting any school to be able to do all the monitoring that you're talking about and keeping track of all the history and tracking everyone's account, when the PA system isn't working in 95% of the classrooms and cameras are falling off the walls here, which happens, then it's not going to happen in the public schools unless they have a bazillion-dollar budget,
Exactly.
which they don't have.
Like, how much money is that going to take out of education to monitor all of us, which is not needed in the first place, when we have kids sitting on floors because we don't have enough desks or enough teachers, or we don't have new textbooks?
Yeah, and you can't expect a school to be able to monitor things, so that's why we got rid of it. You can't expect the school to be oh, every day we're just gonna have someone monitor everything everybody does. You can't do that, that's not possible.
You don't need to monitor unless there's a disturbance reported like they can already do. I'm in a school of 1,600 kids. It's not like they have cameras watching us every second. They're reviewing it every second. No, films are pulled if an act is reported. So I guess if they just tell us, hey, if something bad happens, you can tell us about it. That's the same in real life. Our digital lives are no different.
That's actually a good point. Thank you.
Somebody else now. Who has not spoken?
All right, we had a case last year where a student made a tweet about another tweet that was very inappropriate on school grounds during school hours, and the administration determined she got in trouble for it because it was on school grounds. She made the tweet on school grounds during school hours.
and that's why she got in trouble for it. But I do not see any reason that schools should have Twitter and Facebook on not blocked. They should be blocked. If you can't 8 hours without Twitter, like, you'll be fine. It's just a distractor. Like, I know so many kids, yeah, like there's a lot of kids in here that are mature enough to do their work anyway, but what about the kids that aren't?
That's their fault. Well, don't we have laws that are based upon things that we simply must not do rather than allowances of what the law will let us do? That's kind of how America's law works. So it's not that, oh, we don't need to do it. That's not how our laws work. It's we're allowed to do unless explicitly terrible otherwise.
Okay, my opinion is that if high school students should be allowed, or high school should be allowed to have it there, because if they're restricting something, that proves that kids want to do it more often, because they want to break the rules, they want that, but if you give them the opportunity, it's there, they won't want it as much, because it's free, it's there. They don't have to wait so long.
Are you saying like by blocking it, they might make kids want to do it more?
Yeah,
Like it's yeah.
Because some kids that break the rules do it because they can, because the rules are there. If the rules aren't there, it's going to be whatever, it doesn't matter to them anymore.
Like the I Love Boobies bracelets, they went wild when the school started, blocking.
Yeah,
them.
because they wanted to break the rules because they had an opinion on it. If it's not blocked, they don't have an opinion on it, they don't really care anymore.
Okay.
I just want to put it out there that I think that they shouldn't be restricted or blocked because being part of yearbook staff, there are things that we can't photograph. So we need to get pictures from other people, being on Twitter or Facebook. So now we have to go on our phone to legally in class and get the pictures and send them to our teacher, and our teacher has to put them on our age drive, and we have to go through all of that just to get one picture for a yearbook. And it's a little ridiculous for us to have to do that.
And there are a lot of students without the access to, say, smartphones or computers at home like you do, correct? Okay.
So this was back when you were saying, you were asking if we had parental controls set up. This made me think, and this has happened to me numerous times at my school before, where I've been trying to get on a site for educational purposes, and say the site had an ad placed in the site that was about a site that had online gaming. Oops, I can't get on that site anymore. Like, the blocking system is so strict that it's actually become a problem for me before, where I couldn't get on certain areas that I needed to get to for school because of just a stupid ad, So, just my opinion.
All right, so at our school in Wausau, Wisconsin, we ended up having a problem with Facebook. Some person put up a confessions page for our school where people wrote down things about our school, kind of like Mean Girls with the Burn Book, but it was about our school. And one girl ended up almost committing suicide because of something someone wrote on there. So our principals had to find out who the person was that had the page up and had to force them to shut the page down. So, yeah.
How do you feel about that? What do you think about it?
Well, at first people were putting weird things about the school. I can't remember what some of them were. I don't know. But it was just stupid things about the school, but then people started posting stuff about people. And then this one girl apparently attempted to commit suicide because of something. So her mom put something on the page about how she was going to do something about it, like sue the school or something. So obviously the principals had to find out who had the page and tell them to shut it down.
There has been a successful lawsuit against schools for neglecting to protect kids from bullying. Minnesota, there was a huge ACLU case recently, and they won. And the school district now has to do all kinds of training against bullying, and they showed that the school is liable if they don't do something about bullying, so that percent could be really big.
I have to actually go and catch my bus, so.
Yes, and I think we're actually done here. No, you didn't. Thank you guys very much.